I never expect a quick answer from you, my long-winded friend. It is good to see you both. Thank you so much. John.
To follow the facts, we examine big ideas, we let diverse perspectives flow and ignite conversations that matter most to bring the world to you. Stay informed, stay connected, stay invested. From our studios in Abu Dhabi, join me for Connect the World with Becky Anderson.
Tonight on CNN.
I'm Valeria Leon in Mexico City, and this is CNN.
In just moments, polls open in Florida for two special elections, posing the first major test for Republicans since the 2024 election. There were two House seats up for grabs in districts that overwhelmingly voted for President Trump. That doesn't mean Democrats aren't still looking to make up ground and narrow the House GOP majority. Joining me now to talk about one of those races is Gay Valamont, the Democratic nominee in Florida's 1st congressional district. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You're running as a Democrat, obviously, at a time when the Democratic Party is actually really struggling in their polling numbers. I think a CNN poll found that just 29% of voters have a favorable view. That's the lowest since the 90s. Are you worried that the national brand could hurt you in this state special election race?
I mean, I guess a little bit, but I've spent 19 months talking to the people of this district. They should know who I am by now, and I believe that is going to work to my benefit.
You also have a very high number of federal workers in your district. And I'm wondering for you how you have been feeling the effects of the cuts and sort of reimagining of federal agencies. What are they saying to you that you're actually able to talk about in your campaigning?
Oh, yeah, we are having, so we have 20,000 federal workers that work in our district. That's of the 90,000 in Florida. Because we're made up of active duty military bases, retired military vets, and retired civilians. So we are having lots of kickbacks from what's going on, particularly with our federal workers walking in the door from the IRS, from the Social Security office, wondering if they're going to have a job the next day. And our vets are really struggling.
You've got more than half, I think 55% of registered voters in your district are Republican. So you're looking for crossover votes, even if you're just narrowing down the margins in a district that traditionally was very Republican. How have you changed your message? What do you talk about to these Republicans to get them to maybe cast their vote for you?
Well, what I'm telling them is that I live here. My opponent doesn't even live in the district. Which is not illegal, but a little unethical. People know that from the beginning, even when I was running against Matt Gaetz, that I am the only one that's ever really wanted to represent them. This district is very special to me. I will always live here no matter what, win or lose, and I will always take care of the people here. It means a lot to me, and I think that Republicans understand the mission, that we need somebody here that's going to actually be a surrogate to the federal government for us when we have not had that representation in many, many years.
You're replacing, obviously, you mentioned Matt Gaetz. I mean, is part of your argument what the House Republicans are or are not doing in this last couple of months? How are you talking about this? Or are you leaving national issues alone?
Well, national issues kind of don't work into our politics. I mean, what we're concerned about right now are the DOGE cuts. And I believe that the majority of people voted for Donald Trump because they wanted some sort of change. But the people that were told that they were going to cut the deep state thought that was going to happen in D.C. They didn't believe that it was going to happen right here at home. And we're seeing the effects. These people that are losing their jobs on our military bases have very specific jobs. They're not going to be able to find a job across town. They're going to have to pick up their family and move and take their money out of our local economy. That's going to affect us locally. And that's what I'm concerned about, preserving jobs for this district and making sure that we take care of our vets.
Gay Valamont in Florida, in your special election today, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
And to be clear, we invited Valamont's Republican opponent, Jimmy Patronis, on air as well. He said he was unable to join us. Fortunately, we are joined by Florida State Senator Joe Gruters. He's also the treasurer of the Republican National Committee. Senator, thank you for being with us here. First, I want to get your reaction from what we just heard from Gay Valamont, who's looking to flip the seat that was once held by Matt Gaetz. What does the fact that she's actually raised more than $6 million for her race, what does that say to you, someone who's, watching the money?
Well, listen, if you look at all these special elections, what's happening is every day the president is winning, the intensity on the left and their base increases. That's why these races are close. But at the end of the day, you have Jimmy Patronis, who's probably one of the nicest, one of the most well-respected elected officials in all of Florida, running for this congressional district. Not only that, he's one of the president's good friends. He has a great relationship with him. He's going to be able to go up there, with a running start. And it doesn't matter how much money she raises. Jimmy Patronis is absolutely going to destroy her, because I think that Florida is Trump country. Right. CD1 specifically with veterans. The voters of District 1 are going to want a champion at the end of the day. And there's no better champion to have than Jimmy Patronis.
The thing is, it's Florida. In these districts, they have been Trump country for a long time. In a way, we're reporting on them because there's this chance that those margins could be smaller. And you mentioned the money. Josh Weil fundraised nearly 10 times more than your candidate, State Senator Randy Fine. So your argument is that Trump is winning and that activates people. But we're talking about large sums of people kind of putting their money where their mouth is.
Well, listen, it goes back to it's because the president is winning on a daily basis. These donations are not from inside the district. They are from outside the district. It's probably going to end up being a 15-to-1 margin in CD6 with Randy Fine. And let me tell you, that Randy Fine is the Hebrew hammer. He's probably going to be the smartest guy in Congress, a double Harvard grad, absolutely crushed it here in Tallahassee. And he's another guy who's going to go up there and have an immediate impact, because what both these guys are going to do is they're going to be team players with the president, and they both agree with the president's agenda. They were handpicked by the president, and it doesn't matter how much the Democrats raise, both these guys are going to win big.
Given what you just said, I want to bring up something that we heard from a local GOP chairman who told the Associated Press, if we don't win decisively, then we have failed. Is anything less than a blowout a warning sign to national Republicans?
No, because what you've seen in Iowa, what you saw in Pennsylvania last week, it goes back to the fact that the left is motivated. And this happens every election cycle. When somebody wins, when Barack Obama won, what happened? The Tea Party emerged, and we started winning all these special elections. The Democrats are in the same position now. They're upset and frustrated because the president is doing such a great job. It'd be one thing if President Trump went into office and didn't do anything. But every single day he's winning. He's winning for the American people. And as a result, these two candidates directly represent the President of the United States. They represent his policies. It's going to be a win. It doesn't matter if they win by 1 point or 30 points. A win is a win. It's going to increase our majority in Congress. They're going to be able to help the president pass his agenda up in D.C.
At this point, are these referendums on Trump or Elon Musk?
Listen, at the end of the day, this is about the agenda and the policies of the president. Elon Musk is pushing the president's agenda. Listen, we're $36 trillion in debt. The president's always been for the American people and trying to make sure the working man and trying to make sure that we have the fairest possible trade deals, that we put Americans first over and over and over again. Some people don't want to have America be number one in everything. I know President Trump very well. He wants America to be number one across the board. He loves America. He loves Americans, and he's doing everything he can. And these candidates directly reflect the president. They will both win tonight, and they're both going to deliver on behalf of Florida up in Congress, and they're going to make sure president's agenda is first and foremost on the minds of everybody in D.C. after they win.
All right, Joe's treasurer of the National Republican Committee. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Gird your loins. Huge early test of the Trump presidency. The polls just opened for special elections in crucial states. We've got new reporting on where Republicans are nervous and where Elon Musk is spending a fortune.
Armed robbers breaking into the home of former Seattle Seahawks star Richard Sherman. Sherman and his family shake it up after he becomes the latest NFL star to be targeted by thieves.
today, jury selection begins in the retrial of the Massachusetts woman accused of killing her police officer boyfriend. I'm Kate Baldwin with Sarah Seidner and John Berman. This is CNN News Central.
And the breaking news, what day is it?
Election day in America, friends.
Crucial special elections in Wisconsin and Florida that serve as early referendums or referenda on the Trump presidency. In Florida, the polls just opened just moments ago. 2 congressional seats are vacant, including that of now National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who, of course, played a central role in the Signalgate controversy. This is a deep red district, but Republicans are sweating it out after Democrat Josh Weil outraised his Republican opponent by about 10-1. Even a loss for Democrats by a smaller margin than expected could give them some momentum. Now, polls are set to open in Wisconsin as well. Voters there are choosing a new justice, a state Supreme Court justice, who will decide the balance of power in the court there. This is the most expensive judicial race in history. At least $90 million spent so far. It could go well over $100 million by the time it's all counted. Trump ally Elon Musk was just in Wisconsin handing out $1 million checks to 2 voters. Let's get right to Wisconsin. With us now is Richard Kramer, a reporter with Wisconsin Public Radio. Sir, great to see you. This is officially a nonpartisan race for the state Supreme Court. But no one buys that. No one believes that. The Democrats are supporting one judge. The Republicans are supporting another. How nationalized has this race become?
Completely nationalized. The conservative candidate in the race, Brad Schimmel, called early on for the race to be nationalized so that he could mobilize some third-party support. But yeah, as you've mentioned, we've got endorsements from President Trump and Elon Musk for Mr. Schimmel. The liberal candidate, Susan Crawford, has gotten an endorsement from former President Barack Obama. Just a tremendous amount of money flowing in Wisconsin. Elon Musk has a super PAC doing canvassing throughout the state. A lot of attention is being paid to this race.
Are there particular issues, or what issues are being discussed in this race?
So from the right side, from Mr. Schimmel and his supporters, they're saying that the Supreme Court's liberal majority that has been in place since late 2023, they say that they're more of a political body than a judicial one, that they're acting like a super legislature. On the liberal side, on Democrats' side, they're saying that Schimmel, because of all the support that he's gotten from Elon Musk, that he'll essentially do his bidding. And Tesla does have a lawsuit in the state regarding their attempt to set up dealerships. That's not at the Supreme Court, but it could get there. And also, Democratic voters I've talked to say that they're just upset with the direction that Washington is going, and they're trying to make their voices heard through this state race.
They're trying to make it a referendum on the Trump presidency. How much are they trying to make it a referendum on Elon Musk himself? How much of a polarizing figure is Musk right now in Wisconsin?
Well, I've seen, it depends on who you ask, I guess. He's definitely generating a lot of excitement and enthusiasm among Republicans. The infusion of cash is helping Schimmel's campaign. But on the Democratic side, they are very upset at how involved Elon Musk is in our state race here. Though the Wisconsin Democratic Party has been hosting a series of statewide town halls that they titled People versus Musk. And we had one in Eau Claire, where I'm at, a couple weeks ago, where we had former Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz in Eau Claire, and he essentially said the same thing. The first step in cleaning house is the Supreme Court.
Why are Republicans so nervous this morning about a race in a district that Donald Trump won by 30 points? It is Election Day in America, special elections that could tell us a lot about political trends in the country. A student at Columbia University has fled to Canada after being labeled a terrorist sympathizer. Now she's looking for answers on why officials targeted her in the first place. And dozens of top IRS officials sidelines as the White House finalizes controversial plans to share sensitive taxpayer data with immigration authorities. I'm John Berman with Sarah Seidner and Kate Baldwin. This is CNN News Central.
John said it, now I'm saying it. It's Election Day in America. Just moments ago, the polls opened in Wisconsin's highly funded Supreme Court race. Voters in Florida are also casting ballots today in a pair of closely watched special House elections, all three races serving as early referendums on Donald Trump's presidency. Now in Wisconsin, voters are choosing a new justice who will decide the balance of power in the state Supreme Court. And it's brought in huge amounts of money, at least $90 million spent, making it the most expensive judicial race in United States history. Trump ally Elon Musk was just there handing out million-dollar checks to two voters, the two candidates laying out the high stakes.
Many of our election integrity laws are going to end up in front of this court, and we could see the rules our legislature's put in place in recent years to try to protect that election integrity get struck down by this activist court.
We have two candidates in this race, and only one of the candidates wants to be a fair and impartial justice on the Supreme Court. The other candidate is a partisan politician who wants to politicize our court and is willing to sell our court out to the highest bidder, the richest man in the world.
And in Florida, two congressional seats are up for grabs, including the one vacated by Mike Waltz, Trump's national security advisor and a key player in the Signalgate controversy. Joining me now is Michael Soler, a congressional reporter for Punchbowl News. What are you watching today in these races, which normally would probably not be paid a ton of attention to, but everyone is looking at this laser focused?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Wisconsin, I know that I spoke with many members of their delegation last week, and they're closely monitoring this because this is going to hugely impact the potential future of House races and how the maps are going to be drawn. So it's going to have a huge impact on Congress, no matter which side is victorious tonight. And then in Florida, we're looking at a race in Michael Waltz's seat, a race that Trump won by over 30 points. But Republicans are starting to get nervous because it seems like their candidate may lose a lot of that margin. Actually, we still expect them to win, but they could only win by about 10 to 20, which would be a huge shift towards Democrats in a very, very red district.
It's a very tight vote in the House as well. So there's so many things here sort of hanging in a balance. Let's head to Wisconsin now. There's a whole lot of attention and a whole host and bunch of money that has been pumped into this state Supreme Court race there. Tell us why.
Yes, I mean, I think that both sides are definitely making the case that this is clearly one of the most important political races in the country that's happening now. Elon Musk and his groups associated with him have poured millions of dollars into this race. I know that Democrats in the Wisconsin delegation, despite the fact that there's only 2 Democrats in the House and 1 in the Senate, are making that a big deal in their messaging, saying that Musk is trying to buy this election. Very similarly to how he did to the events that he was holding in the 2024 presidential election as well.
Mika, I botched your name at the beginning. I do apologize. I know who you are. You are a great reporter, and I really appreciate you. Kate is laughing because I get brain. Can I say fart on TV? Brain fart?
You can say whatever you
Okay.
want.
Well, that's what happened, Mika, just so you know. Kate?
Because I am not one to be making fun of somebody for mispronouncing something. Let's just leave it right there, my dear. Okay, joining us right now, political commentator and former Democratic member of the South Carolina State House. Now you know I'm going to screw a bunch of stuff up. Bakari Sellers and Maura Gillespie, former advisor to then Speaker of the House, John Boehner. And there isn't a worse person for me to do something silly on air with than Bakari Sellers and Maura Gillespie, because they will make fun of me relentlessly. Let's start with Florida 6. Maura, what's the least and the most that you think you can read into this special today? Because special elections are special. Everyone's got an opinion on how much it can tell us about the future. What do you think?
One, I would never make fun of you on air, so let's just put that out there. Yes, there you go. And no, I think today, you know, Cliff Stearns held this seat for many years with normally 70% of the vote on average, 65% of the vote. You know, so to see the fact that we're even questioning this seat should be an alarm bell for Republicans, as what it comes down to is the issues, right? Voters are basically saying the issues that they voted for in November aren't being addressed right now. And so, and couple that with the fact that Randy Fine really kind of thought he had it in the bag up until a few weeks ago. That's why you're seeing, excuse me, these numbers. And I do think that Republicans need to pay attention to this. But the seats will be, I think the seats will both be won by Republicans. I'm not worried about that part. But the numbers will tell a story that I think the majorities are in question.
What do you think, Bakari? Can you read into, will you want to read into the outcome from, let's just stick with Florida 6 since that seems to be the one getting so much attention, into what it could mean for midterms that are still, you know, it's not tomorrow. Midterms are not tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I don't take a whole lot of stock from special elections. I think people in and around DC oftentimes look at special elections as some type of predictor of the future, and that's just not the case. But I mean, this will have some impact on whether or not Republicans are able to pull some upset in the New Jersey governor's race, for example. It will foretell maybe what's going to happen in Virginia later this year. There will be some signs you can take, but at the end of the day, Maura was extremely correct. People voted for Donald Trump for two reasons. They voted so that he would close the southern border, and they voted so that he would lower the price of eggs. They didn't vote for all this other Elon Musk stuff and all the other charades that are going on in and outside of the White House. And so I think that's bogging down his message, but we'll see tonight. The one thing this will not impact is Donald Trump. He ain't gonna change for nobody because of any election. House Republicans may run away from him, but Donald Trump is going to be Donald Trump.
On the issue of Elon Musk, especially his influence in that Wisconsin judicial race, I mean, now the most expensive state judicial race like in history, there is an interesting take from the Political Playbook this morning. I wanted to review some reporting from J-Mart. Here's the reporting. Such is the concern Musk is causing among GOP representatives in competitive seats that some are praying for an early reckoning, J-Mart reports. An April 1st massacre would be a beautiful thing, one GOP lawmaker tells him, as it might help shuffle Musk toward the exit door well ahead of the midterms. Quote, Elon's work needs to wrap up and he needs to exit stage left. Another GOP lawmaker agrees, which is interesting. Is Elon Musk becoming a problem for Donald Trump? Bakari.
Oh, we were just sitting here waiting on you to call a name out. Yes, it is a problem for Donald Trump. I mean, we have stated that from the very beginning. I mean, Elon Musk is going to just outstay and overlive his welcome here. I mean, he's unelected. He has no accountability to anyone, and he's out there doing the job of legislators. And at the end of the day, when we come on air and continuously call him the Speaker of the House or the President of the United States, that wears thin on lawmakers, because Elon Musk is the one who's running the federal government right now. He's also running it into the ground. And so these cuts that you see, the fact that farmers aren't able to get subsidies, aren't able to sell their goods, those complaints come back to their members of Congress, not Elon Musk. And because he's not on the front line taking the brunt of the complaints, he's driving around Teslas and, you know, making new babies every other week. He does not understand what's really going on out here in the streets, and that is going to wear thin quickly.
On that point, add to that, not on that point.
Well,
you want to jump in on that point? I don't know. Donald Trump hinted yesterday, Maura, that Musk may have to leave his duties as a special government employee, may have to go back to running his company full time, kind of ending his time with his mission at Doge. And here's what he said to reporters in the Oval Office. I think he's amazing, but I also think he's got a big company to run. And so at some point he's going to be going back. He wants to. I'd keep him as long as I could. I thought it was pretty interesting hearing that is not what we have heard from Donald Trump to this point. Anything about him having to go, him needing to focus on his company at all. What do you hear in that? What do you think?
Well, remember when this was first announced, the old Doge entity with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk at the helm, they said very proudly that all of their work at Doge would be completed by July 4th of 2026, America's 250th birthday. So it was already set in stone that the Doge entity would dissolve by then. So this shouldn't really be as newsworthy, or did the president forget about that it was already set in stone that it was going to end? So I think that's But really what you could read into that if you wanted to is that he's looking for an escape valve. And so if things don't go well and aren't looking great for 2026, well, those should have already been ended by then. So who will he then blame? So I don't know if he's trying to prolong it so that he can then blame him after the midterms. I'm just not sure. But you keep him until November. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But he did initially say that this would be done by July 4th. So
I see a really fun soap opera playing out before our eyes.
Will be very interesting in 2026.
At least, Picard, really quick on Tariff Day coming up. The fact that it's still a mystery of what tariffs are about to set in and on what countries, that means what in terms of the real impact and political impact, since that's what we're discussing of this trade war?
A lack of consistency and a lack of competency. But this is what the American people voted for. Listen, I give Donald Trump a lot of hell every time I'm on TV, and rightfully so. But the lone compliment I can give him is that he has been the most honest broker that we've had in recent American history. The reason being is because he told us he was going to do all of these things, and people for some reason assumed that he would forget or otherwise reprioritize or otherwise say that, no, I'm just not going to do it. And so now all of our allies, foes, and friends alike, they just have to sit on pins and needles. And you know who else that affects? That affects your grandmama's Social Security or her retirement that is in the stock market right now that is about to fluctuate depending on what Donald Trump decides to do today. That type of lack of competency, that type of lack of consistency. Oh, you said a quick answer? I'm sorry. That's what Donald Trump is known for.
I never expect a quick answer from you, my long-winded friend. It is good to see you both. Thank you so much. John.
To follow the facts, we examine big ideas, we let diverse perspectives flow and ignite conversations that matter most to bring the world to you. Stay informed, stay connected, stay invested. From our studios in Abu Dhabi, join me for Connect the World with Becky Anderson.
Tonight on CNN.
I'm Valeria Leon in Mexico City, and this is CNN.
In just moments, polls open in Florida for two special elections, posing the first major test for Republicans since the 2024 election. There were two House seats up for grabs in districts that overwhelmingly voted for President Trump. That doesn't mean Democrats aren't still looking to make up ground and narrow the House GOP majority. Joining me now to talk about one of those races is Gay Valamont, the Democratic nominee in Florida's 1st congressional district. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You're running as a Democrat, obviously, at a time when the Democratic Party is actually really struggling in their polling numbers. I think a CNN poll found that just 29% of voters have a favorable view. That's the lowest since the 90s. Are you worried that the national brand could hurt you in this state special election race?
I mean, I guess a little bit, but I've spent 19 months talking to the people of this district. They should know who I am by now, and I believe that is going to work to my benefit.
You also have a very high number of federal workers in your district. And I'm wondering for you how you have been feeling the effects of the cuts and sort of reimagining of federal agencies. What are they saying to you that you're actually able to talk about in your campaigning?
Oh, yeah, we are having, so we have 20,000 federal workers that work in our district. That's of the 90,000 in Florida. Because we're made up of active duty military bases, retired military vets, and retired civilians. So we are having lots of kickbacks from what's going on, particularly with our federal workers walking in the door from the IRS, from the Social Security office, wondering if they're going to have a job the next day. And our vets are really struggling.
You've got more than half, I think 55% of registered voters in your district are Republican. So you're looking for crossover votes, even if you're just narrowing down the margins in a district that traditionally was very Republican. How have you changed your message? What do you talk about to these Republicans to get them to maybe cast their vote for you?
Well, what I'm telling them is that I live here. My opponent doesn't even live in the district. Which is not illegal, but a little unethical. people know that from the beginning, even when I was running against Matt Gaetz, that I am the only one that's ever really wanted to represent them. This district is very special to me. I will always live here no matter what, win or lose, and I will always take care of the people here. It means a lot to me, and I think that Republicans understand the mission, that we need somebody here that's going to actually be a surrogate to the federal government for us when we have not had that representation in many, many years.
You're replacing, obviously you mentioned Matt Gaetz. I mean, is part of your argument what the House Republicans are or are not doing in this last couple of months? How are you talking about this? Or are you leaving national issues alone?
Well, national issues kind of don't work into our politics. I mean, what we're concerned about right now are the DOGE cuts. And
in the coming hours, an early referendum on President Trump's second term is set to play out in several high-stakes elections. In Wisconsin, mega donors, including Elon Musk, George Soros, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, are fueling what is now the most expensive judicial race in American history. Voters there are set to choose a new state Supreme Court judge. The winner could tip the court's ideological balance, where liberals currently control a slim 4-3 majority. This as Republicans are battling to keep a pair of congressional seats in Florida. Ordinarily, the deep red districts vote conservative, but this year's races are closer than expected. The competitive turn is giving Democrats a glimmer of hope that the outcome will show dissatisfaction with the Trump agenda, even though their party's candidates are not expected to win. Larry Sabato is the director of the University of Virginia Center for Politics. He is also a professor and author. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Rosemary.
So, Larry, we will be watching 3 crucial votes today that could prove to be big tests for Donald Trump's new presidency. Let's start with Wisconsin's Supreme Court race, where billionaire Elon Musk has tipped in more than $20 million of his own money, including direct $1 million checks being given to voters. Many critics accusing Musk of buying votes. What will be the likely outcome of this critical election with such record spending?
Yes, the total now has exceeded 80 million easily. It may exceed 90 million by the time we total it all up. And I suspect Musk has already given more. He's at 22 million, and probably the final tally will have him higher. That is extraordinary for a single Supreme Court seat in any state, though Wisconsin is a very important swing state. And this is the critical vote on the Supreme Court that will determine whether it has a conservative majority or a liberal majority. So Musk is a double-edged sword. He's spending so much money that he's stirring up the Republican base, and they had not been terribly excited about this race. So I think he's helped Republicans there. The overall problem for him, though, is that he's very unpopular in Wisconsin, as he is in most other places. He has stirred the ire of the Democrats and many independents who feel he's buying elections on behalf of Trump.
And also Tuesday, 2 special elections in deep red Florida House seats that have national implications with the GOP's very thin majority in the House. How do you expect these 2 elections to play out today?
One of them is certain to go Republican because Trump carried it by 37 percentage points just last November. Maybe it's closer than that, but 1 vote or a million, you're still a member of the House of Representatives, and that's what the Republicans want and need. The other seat is competitive, though I simply can't imagine a Democrat winning because Trump carried that district by 30 percentage points. Not quite as high as the other one, but it's awfully tough to make up 30 percentage points. The Republican didn't raise enough money, wasn't a particularly aggressive campaigner. But all things considered, when you have territory that red, it's going to vote Republican in all probability. If Democrats win this, you'll be hearing about it from now until 2026 or 2028 because it really will be extraordinary.
Yeah, no doubt. And Larry, one of the big issues that's tanking Trump's approval ratings right now is his on-again, off-again tariffs. And on Wednesday, his new reciprocal tariffs will target all countries, according to him, in what he's calling Liberation Day. Wall Street is taking a hit and Main Street is feeling the pain. What could these massive tariffs mean for today's three crucial elections, but also in 2 and 4 years, as you mentioned, when Trump's economic policies are put to the ultimate test, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. Look, tariffs are unpopular as proposed by Trump for a couple of reasons. First of all, almost all mainstream economists, including many Republicans, say this will increase prices that will be passed along to consumers. And why was Donald Trump elected? To lower prices, which he said would happen on his first day in office. And second, the way Trump has presented these tariffs, they have been on again, off again. They've managed to irritate our closest allies. And generally speaking, Americans know Canadians tend to be reserved and rather friendly. And they're not used to having the Star-Spangled Banner booed at hockey games and in other situations. They know that this has caused great upset around the world. Is it worth it? And if it raises prices for Americans, it's certainly not worth it.
And Larry, President Trump is also tripling down on his threat to run for a third term. He says he's not joking, and there's a way to do it, according to him, despite the 22nd Amendment of the U.S. Constitution saying it's not possible. Trump said it again Monday and repeated his claim that people are asking him to run again. So is this real or is this a distraction?
I think it's both. And here's why. He's using it as one of those shiny objects to change the subject from Signalgate and maybe from the election results later today. At the same time, I think he really is serious about it. He remembers how unhappy he was and how unpleasant it was to leave office in 2021. He'd like to avoid doing that again, if at all possible. Now, constitutionally, I disagree with several of the experts who are saying, oh, there's a way around this and he might be able to do it. The intent of the 22nd Amendment is clear. What is going to be interesting is whether Trump even bothers to obey the Constitution. You know, he can just wave it off. What's the Supreme Court going to do, assuming they side against him? Are they going to send a few U.S. Marshals over to the White House? No, Trump has the Army. Trump has an army of personal supporters coming off January 6th. He can do it. He's done it before. So there's a lot to worry about here. People ought to be concerned.
This money, woo, here we go. This morning, big money and a big spotlight. All eyes in the political world are on two states, Wisconsin and Florida. Reason being, in just about 24 hours, polls are going to open in elections in both states that have turned into real tests of President Trump and Elon Musk's power, and an early test also of how real the public anger and backlash is against some of the president's early moves. In Wisconsin, voters will decide the balance of the state Supreme Court by choosing a new justice. Now, the race has already broken records. $73 million in spending, the most of any U.S. judicial race. On Sunday, Elon Musk was there to hand out $1 million checks to two Wisconsin voters as part of his effort to win voters over. Now let's talk about Florida. Two House seats are up for grabs in special elections, seats vacated by Matt Gaetz and Mike Waltz, who's now Trump's national security advisor, of course. CNN's Mark Preston starting us off this hour. And the big question, you know, that some out there are asking is, why are these seemingly smaller special election races, why do they matter so much right now? Let's start in Wisconsin. What is going on there? Why does Elon Musk care about it so much? What do you see happening?
Well, Wisconsin is a state that certainly is viewed as a battleground state back in 2020. Joe Biden barely won. Donald Trump barely won it back in 2024 by less than 30,000 votes. But what's interesting about Wisconsin right now is that this state Supreme Court, which is controlled by Democrats, is now about to be put to the test of whether or not Republicans can take it back. What's at stake? several big issues, namely abortion is the biggest issue right now that is on the table that Democrats and Republicans are fighting about. Collective bargaining is going to be a big issue as well. The redrawing of congressional districts. So if Democrats can hold on to the seat right here, as you see Susan Crawford, she is the Democratic, or in this nonpartisan race, they're not supposed to have titles, but she is the liberal candidate, and Brad Schimmel is the conservative Republican candidate. Elon Musk, though, taking very much interest in this race, spending more than $20 million of his own money in this race. And in fact, he was there last night, as you said. Let's hear what he had to say, not only about Wisconsin, but what we're going to see down in Florida, Kate.
What's happening on Tuesday is a vote for which party controls the U.S. House of Representatives. That is why it is so significant. And whichever party controls the House, it to a significant degree controls the country, which then steers the course of Western civilization. So it's like, I feel like this is one of those things that may not seem that it's going to affect the entire destiny of humanity, but I think it will.
You know, what's interesting about this, Kate, is that, we spend so much time focusing on Donald Trump and trying to get inside of his head. I think we're already inside Donald Trump's head. One of the most powerful people in the world right now happens to be the most richest person in the world, who happens to have an incredible amount of influence over the makeup of the federal government, and that's Elon Musk.
Yep, and trying to have an incredible amount of influence over that election. And let's focus in now on Florida. These two seats, right, they should be easy wins for Republicans. I mean, they're districts that Trump won plus 30 and even more. Why is it giving, especially Mike Waltz's seat, why is it giving Republicans so much heartburn right now then?
Well, Republicans will tell you it's because their candidate is not a great candidate, hasn't gone out, hasn't really worked very hard, thought it would be an easy election. But on the other side, you have Democrats rallying behind Brad Schimmel. He is the Democratic candidate. Now, as you know, are Democrats going to win these races tomorrow? One is for Mike Waltz's seat. The other was for Matt Gaetz' seat. The odds are they will not win these races. However, if they can show substantial gains, meaning chipping away at that 30-point gain, it could show you that maybe Donald Trump's support is softening a little bit, specifically in conservative areas. So Democrats hope to get that, at least one of those seats, because we know it's a razor-thin margin Speaker Johnson has right now, and that's why we saw at least Stefanik step aside from being, going to the UN in New York, and will stay in Congress. Kate?
Yeah, at least Stefanik having to do a full 180 about face on her plans for the coming weeks and months with that announcement from Trump. Good to see you, Mark. Thank you. John.
All right. With us now, Maria Cardona, CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist, and Scott Jennings, CNN political commentator and former special assistant to President George W. Bush. I'm going to ask both of you to play a little game this morning. Fill in the blank. These special elections tomorrow, Maria, will tell us blank.
That voters are sick of Donald Trump and MAGA and Musk's overreach. They're sick of being betrayed by what the president promised in the elections, which is bringing down and reducing the cost of groceries, gas, and rent. They are sick of the economic turmoil and the tariff taxes that Trump is trying to impose on them. And we're going to see that voter backlash. We have already seen it in the last special elections. Democrats have won 12 out of the last 13 special elections, flipping Republican seats that Donald Trump won by double digits. I think we're going to see a lot of that tomorrow.
So you've had time to prepare your answer, Scott, so I'm expecting a lot from you. These special elections will tell us blank.
Very little. I mean, look, they're special elections, and turnout in a special election is vastly different than a turnout in a midterm or even a turnout in a presidential. To Maria's point about people being sick of Donald Trump, I just point out in the CBS poll yesterday, he has a 50% approval rating, which is higher than the portion of the vote he got in the November election. So I don't think people are really sick of it. I do think a couple of things are true. Number one, the Republican Party is grappling with a new reality. We have a lot of voters in the party that do not vote regularly. They're low propensity voters. They turned out for Donald Trump. They like to vote when he's on the ballot. But even in the November election, you saw people show up, vote Trump, and then leave the rest of it blank. One of the things the party has to do is condition those people to show up even when Donald Trump is not the person they're voting for. Number two, I think the Elon Musk point that you played earlier about the future of Western civilization, I actually think this is a key issue the Republicans ought to lean in on, because it's not just a one-off election when you're voting in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race or some congressional special election in Florida. These things matter. There are ripple effects. A vote here causes major implications on policy down the line. So I think Elon is actually onto something with that messaging, and I hope Republicans, especially the new ones who aren't regular voters, take it to heart.
Scott, as long as we're playing games here, can you in one sentence explain what you think the president's tariff policy will be that he announces on April 2nd? Do you think he can explain it in one sentence today?
Well, I would never want to predict or get ahead of Donald Trump, but my view is that he's been very clear that he believes tariffs will force more manufacturing, more production, more onshoring into the United States, which will ultimately be good for the working class of America. The people who agree with him are the unions, like the head of the UAW. Sean Fain was out
Scott,
this weekend talking about
what's he going to do? Because he said reciprocal, now he's maybe saying not. Now some of his advisors are talking to the paper saying 20% across the board. No one knows, and this is like 2 days from now.
Yeah, and I'm not here to tell you that I know either. I'm just telling you that I think the general principle is he believes that tariffs force jobs, manufacturing, and production back into the United States. The working class will benefit from this, and if allowed to play out over the long term, it will benefit, the core working class constituency that he believes has been hollowed out by trade policies of the past. That is their general economic view.
Over the long term, Maria Pierre Navarro says 10 years, $6 trillion of revenue from tariffs, which some economists will tell you is $6 trillion in taxes. Did you ever think you'd see Republicans so in favor of revenue?
You know, this is something that Americans are actually becoming very concerned with, and that's why you're seeing the volatility in all of these special elections. The fact that we are even talking about the 2 special elections in Florida tomorrow, John, I think is an indication of how scared and sick voters are about what Trump is imposing on them versus what they expected because of his promises during the election. Now, I get what Scott is saying. I think that it's true that Trump thinks that this is going to bring back some kind of magic, situation where manufacturing is going to come back and magically appear. But the fact is, manufacturing has been coming back. And the fact also is that we live in a global economy. And what these tariffs are doing, and I think demonstrating, is that Donald Trump and the people around him don't understand that global back and forth. You've had stories all morning, John, about how so many people that are involved in that global economy, from car dealerships to those folks who make car parts that come back here and then they go overseas again and then come back to complete the car. That is what is being disrupted by these crazy, chaotic tariff announcements that apparently Trump doesn't care, and we actually know that he doesn't care. He said that he could care less if prices go up for consumers on cars. That's not going to bode well for him or for Republicans in the upcoming elections. But then he doesn't really understand what the global economy it is and how it works. And that's why you're seeing economists saying that these are not tariffs. They're going to be taxes on the American consumer. And I think you're going to see a backlash from voters on that.
Scott, shifting gears, the Wall Street Journal has a story out today that says that President Trump will keep his national security advisor, Michael Waltz, but's really unhappy with him. And it cites, the fact that somehow Jeffrey Goldberg's contact ended up, in the signal, et cetera, et cetera. It also includes a line that I'm going to read here. And again, this is Wall Street Journal reporting. 2 U.S. officials also said that Waltz has created and hosted multiple other sensitive national security conversations on Signal with cabinet members, including separate threads on how to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine, as well as military operations. They declined to address if any classified information was posted on those chats. So if there were other chats on Signal, Scott, is this something that you think the White House should now disclose? Is this something that should come out as part of, I guess, the Inspector General investigation?
Well, I think what they need to do is clarify whether this tool is okay to use. I mean, there's a lot of people in Washington that use it, and there's some indication that even the previous administration used it. I heard Senator Warner on ABC yesterday morning saying that he uses it and encourages other people to use it. And so I think if you're worried about the tool, what the White House needs to do is clarify when and how can you use this tool, or, hey, we don't want you to use this tool anymore, whatever the rules of the road are going to be moving forward. You know, that's the thing about this moment. It was a mistake. If I were Trump, I'd be a little upset, too, because it overshadowed what was otherwise a very successful military operation. We pounded the bad guys based on an order from the commander-in-chief, a righteous order. It was a good hit, and it was the right thing to do, and now we're talking about, you know, a communications tool. So to me, the best thing that can happen coming out of this, make it a teachable moment, use it to set hardcore policy in the White House. You can use it, you can't use it, whatever the rules are, make it clear to everyone and make everyone follow it moving forward.
All right, Scott Jennings, Mira Cardona, thanks to both of you. Kate?
And we should mention that Tuesday could provide Donald Trump with his first electoral feedback, let's call it, or feedback on his tariff war, his first 2 months in office, because we've got these key elections coming up, the judicial race in Wisconsin and those two in Florida for the 2 Republican seats. Do you think we're going to see a political backlash at all in any of these play out?
I think there's a chance that the dissatisfaction that Trump and Elon Musk have been brewing could show up. The Wisconsin Supreme Court race is the most expensive of